Welcome, Jordan here. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 simple steps to rewire your subconscious mind. And if you apply it, you can likely do it in under 30 minutes. Now, I'm not going to be telling you to just simply change your belief system. You've probably already heard that, probably already tried that, but what we're going to be doing is going deeper, deeper into the unseen layer that actually holds these beliefs in place, because there's more to it. So we're going to get into that. If you're somebody who's building a business, building a holistically successful life, but you find yourself hitting income plateaus. Maybe you're doing all the right things, but things just aren't really clicking for you like they used to. And maybe you're doing some mindset work, but not really seeing much progress from that. And it's all very intellectual. Instead, I'm going to be sharing some Jedi mind tricks on how you can view reality through a different lens and really tap into the unseen world that is always there, just waiting for you to activate yourself into. The 3 steps I'm going to be walking you through have allowed me to go from once working in a construction factory, making 12 euros an hour, to traveling the world, building my business online, making more money in a month than I did in a year previous. And I'm really, really excited to dive into this. We're going to pull up the whiteboard in just a second, and we're going to be breaking it down for you. There's a beautiful quote I'll kick off with here from Joe Dispenza. He says, "We don't perceive things in our reality. We perceive reality the way that we are." This is where we can understand that oftentimes we get very caught up in looking at our physical world around us and believing that that is the truth of what is going on. But really what is happening under the surface is we are creating all of it. How we experience things around us is based on what's going on within us, because you can have 2 people standing beside each other at a party, let's say. One is having an incredible time, and you can have somebody who's in the exact same environment standing right beside him, but he feels trapped. He feels like he can't express himself. Why is it that these 2 people, exact same environment, are perceiving 2 different realities? Well, it's because of what's going on within them. So to be able to rewire and recode the subconscious, we need to be able to understand reality and how we are creating it. And a very simple gateway into that is to understand deeper about the subconscious. So step 1 is really understanding, what is the block? What is it that we're working with? Now, I can't tell you exactly what that is for you specifically, but I can give you a hint as to what this might look like for you. So what you see here is my attempt to draw 2 eyes. Those eyes are looking into what I call the ascension grid. The ascension grid is the 7 pillars of mastery that give us a gateway into what is really going on, what is in alignment, and what is out of alignment. Alignment is, in this case, we'll keep it really simple, what is working for you? Misalignment, what is not working for you? Very, very simple. We can look at these different 7 pillars here as purpose and spirituality. This could be relationships, so this could be community, it could be loving relationships. This one is leadership, power. This one is health, vitality, sexual energy. This one is your wealth, your finances, your impact, value creation. This one is joy, play, adventure. And this one is your legacy and your contribution. So what we would do is we would look in through the lens of which pillar am I looking at? And when I go deeper into that pillar to find out what is in alignment, what is out of alignment, then we can go deeper into how this is actually showing up on a day-to-day basis to be able to find the subconscious block. Now, this block is going to be some form of belief system, but like I mentioned before, it's not solely just a belief system that is causing this block in the first place, because this is the intellectual understanding of what a belief is. And when you intellectually understand something, then the mind is very easily able to hijack your way of thinking, because you're trying to solve the mind from the perspective of the mind. It's like trying to change your identity from the perspective of the identity. It doesn't work. You're going to slip up along the way, because it's like you're just trying to fight one thing with the same thing in itself. We need to be able to zoom out. We need to be able to see the unseen layers of what is actually holding this belief in place. So it's not just intellectual understanding. So the first thing we have to understand is that humans are made up of 99.99999% energy. Energy is all around us. Emotion is energy in motion. So when we're aiming to rewire the subconscious, we have to both look at belief and look at energy, the energetics, the emotions that are associated with it. Because the emotions that you feel on a day-to-day basis, based off what is going on within the ascension grid that we just talked about here, the emotions that you feel come from a belief system that's in place. So the ascension grid allows us to look into our life to see where is the misalignment. And then as we go deeper into one of those 7 pillars, you'll find things that show up on a day-to-day basis that will cause a certain emotional reaction within you. And that emotional reaction is showcasing the belief that's in place that's causing this subconscious block and causing the loops to happen, the behavior patterns to stay in place, the results to be stagnant, all these different things that we discussed at the beginning of this video. So it's important to understand when we are looking at the subconscious, we're looking at both belief, but we're also looking at the energy, the emotion, and the feeling that is associated with the beliefs that are in place. We need to be able to look at both to be able to rewire these beliefs and get the change at the identity level. If you want to be able to identify what the block is for you and actually have a process around how to unblock this for yourself and move through that, check out the resource that is linked in the description. You can walk yourself through a tool that I've created for you to be able to identify and to clear this in the simplest way possible using what we are discussing in this video. So click the first link below and you'll be able to find that. So once we have identified what the block actually is, and we now understand that there is energy involved and there is belief involved, we can now look at how to use intention to actually be able to move through and to really clear this. So intention can be broken up into 2 different types. Over here, we have A. On the other side, we have R. A stands for the aligned action and the will to move. R stands for the will to receive, the will to actually have what it is that you want. When we combine the will to receive and the will to take aligned action with that, we can actually create change in our lives. Intention is the life force, the energy that you have, and you can direct towards something that you want to either create, bring into reality, or in this case, to unblock something within yourself. There must be an intention involved because many people will passively consume content about reality, about the mind, about whatever it is that they're trying to learn about. But that is not having the intention to actually create the change. Instead, it is passively consuming. And this leads many people down the path of being more confused than clear on what it is they need to do. So let's quickly break down the will to take aligned action and the will to receive, because this is a very, very important component for you being able to create massive leaps and change in your life. Let's first apply this to clearing the unconscious block that we've identified in step 1. The will to take aligned action is taking the minimal amount of steps that are required for you to have the change or to create the shift that you want. Notice how we said minimal, not incredible amounts of grind or hustle. You're likely someone who is taking action. So massive action is not solving the problem because it's only one side. So aligned action in this case is having the will to take conscious steps towards the change and the shift, the minimal required amount that is necessary. So in this case, to clear an unconscious block, it would be using the resource that I've created for you down below, going through that process. It would be journaling. It would be creating some space and time to meditate, to ask yourself some deeper questions, to be able to move towards whatever goals that you have by taking the risk or overcoming the fear, whatever the case is. The will to receive. This is where we're getting into the unseen of what is really happening around us. We are not simply human beings who are carrying the world on our shoulders, trying to make everything happen through pure willpower and action alone. We are moving in a direction where we have to open up our capacity to be taken care of from unseen forces. Call it God, call it the universe, whatever you refer to that as. We have to open up our capacity to receive that, to be able to have it. So when we get caught up in massive action and carrying the world on our shoulders, thinking that everything needs to be done by us, we're ignoring half of what actually creates the result that we're looking for. which is the will to receive. This is really where reality aligns to bring you what you internally accept as yours. So what do we mean by this? You may have heard the term live in the wish fulfilled, Neville Goddard. You may have heard the term act as if, live in the now as if it's already done. Intellectually, we can say, today I'm going to act as if, but we're still focused on the act. I'm going to act as if I'm going to be my future self. Yes, we've discussed this is a component of it, so it's not that is wrong. But the will to receive it is the deep knowing that it is done. It is beyond belief. It is beyond faith. It is a deep knowing. And that deep knowing is cultivated, first of all, over time, but second of all, through building a deep connection with yourself, which we're going to get into in step 3, because this is where the shift really happens. Because that knowing is cultivated from you understanding the truth of who you are and understanding that the will to receive is the will to receive love. It's the will to receive abundance. It's the will to receive whatever it is that you want to bring into your life, because it's already here. So the will to receive is really where we choose to say things like, I choose a reality where I'm already whole. I'm already free from the subconscious block that I have identified. I'm already loved. Think about the time in your life where you have not really done anything and something magical has happened for you. Or you were pushing really, really hard to create all of these different things in your business. And it may have worked a little bit, but it wasn't worth the amount of effort that was put in. And then you take a step back and you take a holiday, or you take some rest, you forget about it for a while. And then all of a sudden things just kind of come out of nowhere. You've experienced that many times in many different ways. This is where the will to receive has allowed you to reduce the importance of you achieving it and needing to act to create it. It allows you to settle into your actual divine nature, which is the interconnectedness of everything around you and you as part of that. Because when you have gone on the journey to deeply know that you are deeply connected to everything around you, the will to receive and that deep knowing happens by default. This is where we have to be careful of the mind, because the mind will come in and hijack this process. The mind loves to think in binaries. Things are either one way or another way, but it's always both. So when the mind is leaning towards thinking in binaries, it thinks, hey, I should just take action all the time. And if I just take action enough, I'll eventually get there. But there's also this other side. Are you actually fully allowing yourself to have that? Or is that action coming from a place of like, I need this to work. I need this to feel worthy. I need this to prove myself. I need this to perform, because then eventually I will be rewarded for that. That's taking action from an energy of lack, which means that an energy of lack is missing the will to receive, because the will to receive is opening up the understanding that we are already whole, that we don't need to do anything to prove ourselves or to feel worthy or validated or whatever the case is. And this over here, when we focus just on this side, just this one binary, if we look at the unconscious block underneath that, it may be, I am not worthy unless I do something. But then on the other side, we have this side where it's just focused on this side. I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to create anything. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to take any action. I'm going to sit over here and I'm just going to receive. That's half the story, because this is where you have many people who would consider themselves quite spiritual, but at the same time are not really making much progress in their life towards these different areas of mastery that we talked about in the ascension grid, and things are a little bit stagnant. It's because the intention is not fully actualized. We need both. Another way of how this actually shows up is people thinking that they constantly need to do more and more inner work to feel worthy. And then you have on the other side of that, people who think that there's absolutely nothing to look at ever. And that if they just keep doing more and more and more, it'll eventually work out. But there's things under the surface that are driving their behavior, that are causing them to be burnt out or dysregulated, or just not really enjoying what they're building. It shows up in many ways. It's holding both understandings simultaneously. Yes, there is always work to do, okay? But but it's also understanding that there is nothing but perfection, and we're also whole and connected to everything around us, which means that, yes, there may be times where we need to go inwards into something to move through that energy, that emotion, to change the beliefs, but then simultaneously understanding that everything comes from source, everything comes from God. So we are perfect by nature because we are made in that image. So therefore, we can understand both of those things simultaneously. And this is a really, really important segue into the final step here, which is actually shifting into a new timeline, and how powerful this has been for me and for many clients I've worked with in many, many different ways. This is where we're getting into timelines. Stick with me, keep an open mind. If you're still with me, you're doing incredible, right? Let's dive into it. When we're looking at timelines, we're looking at the understanding that time in itself is an illusion. So let's go deeper here. We think that time is a straight line. We start somewhere, which is when we're born, and we finish somewhere, which is when we die. And that time is linear, and that we move in a straight line towards something consistently. And it seems that way because that's how we perceive physical reality. And, it makes sense. We watch a movie and the movie starts and the movie finishes. We interpret that as the same as our own life, right? It's a simple thing for the logical mind to wrap its brain around. So we need to understand that everything is happening simultaneously at any given time, which means that there is multiple timelines that we are allowed to move into at any given moment. Okay. So when we are looking at shifting our subconscious blocks and dissolving those blocks in a powerful way so that we can move forward with certainty, with confidence, with conviction, without fear, without doubt, and seeing those things as the illusions that they are, then it's up to us to allow ourselves to live in a new timeline. So let's look at it this way. This is happening at every moment of every day, down to the second, with the choices that we make, our thought energy, the thoughts that we have and the energy that they carry as well as our emotions, our emotional state. Now, this is not to say that we have to perfect this process and we have to live in this peak state of absolute love and bliss all moments of every day. That's not being human. We're not saying that you have to do that. But what we do have to be aware of is how much we are changing timelines each and every moment. So down here, let's say this is a low frequency. So this low frequency down here could be fear, right? So it could be fear. When we are living in fear, we are not living in love. When we are not living in love, we are not in alignment. We are not living from the truth of who we are. We are living from an illusion that has been passed on to us by society, by our environment, by people around us who also live in fear. If you look at everything around you when it comes to the media, when it comes to the general narrative that is out there around money, around everything that you could possibly imagine, it's just all fear-based. Most marketing from big corporations is there to make you feel worse about yourself so that you buy their products, so that you compare yourself to others, so that you buy their products, all of these different things. It is what it is. We have to be aware of it. We have to be able to raise our own energetic frequency, to raise our own levels of consciousness to get out of this so that we do not experience that, because the only reason that we experience this dense low frequency in our life is because we are also emitting that as well. Because when you elevate in your vibrational frequency, you don't experience those things the same way. And this brings us to shifting this timeline. Let's just put love up here. When we get out of fear and go up here to love, we move into a timeline that is up here, that is higher. And therefore our general direction and results in life lead us towards something that is in alignment with that timeline. So we can go like this throughout the day. We could be like up here again, down here. This happens here because we are constantly making new choices at every moment. We're thinking new thoughts that carry a certain frequency and energy, and we are feeling different emotions based on, what is coming up for us in our life. So this is constantly fluctuating. When this is constantly fluctuating throughout the day and we don't have control over that, we are constantly going to come back to whatever our default is, which for most people is down here in the lower dense frequency of fear or doubt or whatever the case is, right? Apathy for some people. It's also a learning experience that allows us to move out of it. Because when we live down here, it's just because we don't understand who we are. We buy into the fear and think it's the truth. We think the negative thoughts are us and our identity. We think how we feel is who we are. Therefore, we live down here. So it's not to say that things like depression don't exist, but it is an illusion that is being bought into. Because when we identify with a feeling as if it is us, then we have no power to change it because we have solidified in our logical mind that this is who I am. And this is the same with scarcity around money, being broke. It could be the same thing as I am not worthy. When you identify with these beliefs, those beliefs carry certain emotions that cause this fluctuation throughout the day. So therefore you live in timelines where you experience the result of what those emotions, thoughts, and feelings and beliefs actually bring to you in your life. So when we are living down here and we don't understand the truth of who we are, we don't know ourselves, we haven't gone on the journey to deeply uncover truly how much we can really love ourselves and love others in that way, then we live in this state of fear. So everything around us comes from that frequency and that vibration. So imagine that in business. Your default state is fear. So everything around you looks terrifying. Everything around you looks like it's going to fall apart. Opportunities don't flow to you naturally. So you must grind, you must hustle. So the advice from the people that you follow also are coming from fear. So they tell you to grind harder and to work harder and to force things because that's how you just create results. Life is just hard. It's all just a belief system that people are choosing to live by. And I know that may sound very confusing because for so long, if you identify with being that way, then me saying that is going to cause an emotional trigger within you because I'm challenging your worldview. But I'm here to tell you that there is another way. There is a new way, and you have the capacity to change that. So let's go deeper into this because this is how things look on a day-to-day basis based on choices, behaviors, thoughts, when you identify with them. What we're aiming to do with everything when it comes to the identity shift is that you're not changing who you are and becoming someone new. You're becoming more of who you truly are, and you're actually being able to disassociate from the identities that you have given yourself that cause you to be stuck where you are right now. So now let's look at where does this really come from and how do we actually transcend it and move through it? Let's get into that because this is where things get really exciting. So there's multiple timelines that you could live on at any given moment. And the more you live in a higher frequency timeline, the more you align with a result that's going to come from you living on that timeline. More often than not, right? We're not trying to be perfect here. More often than not. Now, as well as that, when you have an intention, right? The will to act and the will to receive, you also align yourself with a certain timeline. But let's say you're focused on just taking action in a direction. Now, if you are taking action and you do not have the will to receive as part of that intention, you will simply experience a lesson to point you back in to help yourself to learn to receive, right? So if you are taking action from a place of lack, from fear, from I'm not good enough, from I need validation, from I need to fix myself, and you take action from that place, the result that you will create will simply just be the same timeline that you originally started on because you really originally started from a place of lack. So the result in the timeline that you are on is also going to be lack. Lack here, input, lack, output. Same thing, in and out. This is why you can take all the action in the world to move towards something. But if the energy that's driving it is lack, you are going to experience some form of lack as a result of that. For example, let's say you create content and you're consistently producing videos and you're in this drive of overproduction, always creating because you're trying to prove something, you're trying to be seen, be noticed. And hey, look, there's no judgment here because I'm describing myself, a past version of myself here as well. When you are creating from that place, you are coming from an energy of I am not enough and therefore I must perform to be enough. So you will either experience the lack of the result, or what most people also experience is that they will experience the result. They will actually hit the number, they'll hit the milestone, whatever the case is. But then they will feel this complete downward spiral of no fulfillment. questioning why they even wanted the goal in the first place. And then instead just set a new goalpost somewhere else because no, just got to keep moving. It's a very subtle thing. And I've experienced both in many ways. I've experienced taking the action from lack and then not experiencing the result at all and just spinning my wheels because why? It's trying to point me back inwards to learn the lesson. And I've also experienced hitting the goals like early in my business journey, hitting the goals of 10K a month or 20K a month, but doing it from that place of I'm not worthy, I need to prove myself, I need to perform, hitting those goals and feeling worse because subconsciously I placed so much importance on me getting to the goal because the goal was going to make me feel a certain way that I can't experience the fulfillment that comes from that goal because the lesson for me is to go back in to cultivate that sense of love within. That is the soul's journey. We are not here to just achieve material things. We are here to self-actualize. Yes, the attainment of goals is part of that, but it can be done from an energy that allows you to experience love, fulfillment, peace, and happiness now. And then the result becomes as a byproduct of that without burnout, without stress, almost feeling like you just stepped into this world and it just happened. And I've experienced that as well. It's what is known as flow over force. So let's look at like why these fears and doubts and these dense energies come up throughout our life that push us back and force us to feel the lack of momentum, to hit the income plateaus, to sabotage, to do all the like intellectual work and understand things, but then never really make progress. This has been the key for me. And I think this is where you're going to unlock something for you too. So oftentimes when we experience fear, doubt, lack, some form of energy that's pulling us down, that causes us to slip into a version of ourselves that we just don't want to be. We know we're not that person, yet we slip into it. Why do we slip into that? Well, we're experiencing in the present moment a past version of ourselves that felt that fear. More often than not, that fear is irrational. And the past event or the past memory is now affecting the present moment. So we focus on it. Maybe we're reliving those things in our mind. Maybe we're not even thinking about those things that caused the fear or the doubt or the lack of feeling worthy or whatever the case is. Maybe those things are not something that we actively think about consciously, but subconsciously, they are all happening right here in the moment. So when you feel those emotions or even think those thoughts in the present moment, there's a past version of you that is looking for attention. Likely it's either the little boy or the little girl within you that is looking to be seen, that is asking for your attention. The way I like to visualize this is that there's a child, like that child, that little boy within me comes up and pulls on your leg and he's afraid, scared, feeling a heaviness that has come from something that caused his perspective on life to be limited from society, from your environment, from culture, from parents, from friends, whatever the case is. And what do most of us do in those moments? We push that child aside. We say, hey, no, you just got to work harder. You just got to get out of the way. Like just go away. Like you're fine. We just got to keep pushing. There's no compassion there. There's no love. So we end up fighting this game against ourselves. We end up fighting in this intellectual battle of ego versus the heart. And the ego wins every single time because it's so loud. And when the mind is louder than the heart, you experience the resistance, the friction, the burnout, the sabotage, all of it. Because there's a part of you that's looking to be seen. Just leads to a predictable future of more of the same, where no matter how many strategies you implement, no matter how many things you do, no matter how many actions you take, the future is predictable because those emotions, those states of being, those fears, those doubts, all of these different things, there's many different aspects. We're just touching on a few here. They have not been integrated. They have been ignored. They have been rejected. They have been suppressed. So you just feel like a shell of who you really are. You don't feel fully whole. You don't remember your true nature. You get stuck in the mind. And then the mind does its best to solve all the problems intellectually, which doesn't work. So we start to overthink, get caught in loops, which caused you to doubt yourself, to just be constantly stuck in these loops and patterns. When really, there's just a little boy or a little girl within you that's looking to be seen. When we choose to make a new choice, when we choose to give that part of ourselves love, in that moment, we elevate to a new timeline. Because all of the parts of you that have not been integrated from the past, the emotions, the subconscious beliefs, the not worthy, the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty that you constantly try to do more and push through, they will not go away until you integrate them. You must integrate them. There's no way around this. And when you do that, you elevate to a new timeline. You create a new future where your business doesn't burn you out, where success doesn't feel like force all the time. It looks like flow. When your relationships align, because you're not attracting relationships now out of pure wounding of I'm not worthy, so therefore I need this relationship to feel good about myself. But really all that relationship's going to do is teach you a lesson, to point you back in, to do this work that's waiting to be done all the time. And it's only when you integrate those different parts of yourself, which doesn't have to be this big complicated process. I mean, if you use the resource that I've highlighted below, you'll be able to go through and start this process for yourself as well. And that will allow you to just live in this new timeline. Because when those things get integrated, they don't come back. Right? And sometimes, yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's not just a one and done sometimes. Sometimes there's some work to be done there. If you're, 20, 30, 40 years old, then you have 20, 30, 40 years of thinking one way to deprogram and reprogram. But it doesn't have to be complicated. And really, I've noticed from working with clients, a couple of simple shifts create all the difference. They just allow you to elevate up here, and everything that didn't make sense before just makes sense. It's just clear. You're just focused. It just makes sense now. It's like, oh, okay, I could have just done this the whole time. Yeah, you could have just done that the whole time instead of being in the mental loops. This is why I do what I do, because it's so powerful. So powerful. When we talk about inner peace, this is where inner peace comes from. It's when all parts of you have been integrated. Not that it's like this game to finish, right? It's part of the journey of life, but wow, is it beautiful when you do these things. So you then live on this timeline where your future is aligned with a timeline that reflects the integration and the embodiment of your level of leadership. Because integrating these parts of yourself and healing those things and letting them go, having a new perspective, changing your belief system, yeah, they don't just bring you more success, they bring you more happiness, more love, more peace. Because that's what you align with. Because if that's not within you, then you're not going to live in that world where that exists. Everything will feel hard. Everything will feel like force. Everything will feel challenging all the time. Because there's things here that are looking for your attention. That's what the ascension grid does. It allows you to find things in the present moment that are causing these misalignments, that are looking to be integrated so that you can integrate them, let them go, rewire the belief system at the subconscious level, move through it, and then happy days. It just takes some energy, like anything else. It takes some intention, right? The will to do it and the will to receive what can come from it as well. Otherwise, you're doomed to repeat the same future over and over and over and over and over again until you do the integration. And most people live their lives never doing that. They'll just continuously force through it. They'll continuously push through it in the hopes that one day it will change, but it'll still be there waiting to be integrated. It's just that we can oftentimes get really, really good at suppressing them, but it just has to come out in some way, shape, or form. There has to be lessons for that person to learn throughout their life so that they can integrate those things. So the lessons are not bad. They're opportunities, but it's just that we can integrate those things now. We can learn the lessons now. We can do the work now so that we don't have to experience all the hardship that exists on these timelines, because this timeline just gets more and more challenging, because it has to keep pointing you back in and be like, hey, you didn't learn this yet. You didn't learn this yet. You didn't learn this yet. So it doesn't matter how much you push through, you're still going to hit this one and this one and this one and this one. And you don't have to go through all those different things. but they're there to be gone through until you just decide, hey, I'm just going to not relive this anymore. You know what? I'm actually done with this unconscious block. I'm actually done with these things that are just causing these results in my life. I'm just done. I'm just going to change them. Intention, let's do it. I'm done. Sometimes it has to get to that moment. Unfortunately, for many people, it gets to something really bad, like something here where it's like, your whole bit, you make millions of dollars and then it all goes to zero and bankrupt because you built it from the energy of, I need to prove my dad wrong or something. So that's the catalyst then to point you back into yourself. And yeah, that could be the path, but it just doesn't have to be that challenging. I just don't see it as having to be that hard. So with all that being said, I would love to hear what is coming up for you. What are some of your biggest takeaways? Any breakthroughs? Anything that you'd like to share? Setting the intention, allowing yourself to put that out there actually helps you refine and set in motion the change that is waiting to happen. And if you're looking to take some action on this as well, check out that first link in the description. You'll be able to go through that journey, that process. So with all that being said, this has been Jordan. Chat to you soon.